Welcome to the 4 o'clock work session of the Bowling Green Board of Commissioners for May 6, 2014. We only have one item listed on the agenda today, discussing proposed enhancement options for the public transportation services and GoBG Transit. Mr. Febo.
Thank you, Mayor. Just by way of background, this discussion of public transportation was one of the items discussed during our annual retreat, and we are looking at ways, if any, to help improve public transportation here. Mr. Waltrip asked that I invite members of GoBG Transit to address you today with some of their ideas and proposals for us to deliberate on. I think Cheryl Allen is here and her staff.
Okay, how do you want to proceed?
I think we should just let them come up. Make the, unless Bill wants to do it.
Maybe Mr. Waltrip would like to open the
Yeah,
discussion.
I might like to.
Okay.
Very good. Public transportation are one of those issues that is very important to a lot of people. There have been, I'm working on a project with a local agency where we have talked with now over 30 groups. And one of the, not just in Warren County, but in the Brad area. But one of the issues that continually comes up is transportation. And I'd like to say, obviously, I think that the transportation system we have, and for you guys, it does very well, but it's just not, just need more routes. I hope that's what ends up. Expanded times, maybe even expanded days. But again, it's something that, and I kind of framed it this way, Kevin, is that if you have a car, you don't worry that much about transportation. But if you depend on the public transportation to get you to work, health care, some quality of life issues with shopping, then I think we need to do all that we can to have the best transportation system that we can have. And I also know that there's budgetary issues, but again, we do need to at least look into it. And I'm glad that as a group we're sitting up here listening today to Cheryl, Donna, and Ken, what they have to say.
Ms. Cheryl, I believe it's your turn.
Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. DeFebo,
Hi.
Katie. Thank you for allowing us to be here today. This is an important topic for Bowling Green. It's an important topic for the citizens that you represent. We did prepare for you a menu of some options to consider. It is just a small selection of options. If you were to ask each of us individually, if we were to ask you or the citizens of Bowling Green, everyone would probably have a different opinion on what needs to happen for improved or expanded public transit. The options we presented to you were based on starting with the fairly inexpensive, the benches, and then shelters, on up to expanded routes which would increase efficiency and frequency. And we focused on increased frequency because most every study or transit expert will tell you that is the way to increase ridership and improve services for the most people. We can increase hours and days, and that will truly help those who are maybe transit dependent, but it only fits those who need to go where that route goes and fits in that time schedule. You know, their work, their shopping, and all those kinds of varieties. Increasing frequency not only helps increase the transit-dependent passengers, but also opens the door up for more choice riders. And I think it's interesting nowadays that younger people are not as excited about getting their driver's license as maybe we were when I was growing up. They're not seeing having a car as a necessity as much. And then, of course, with the older population, driving can become a barrier that their family fears or that they themselves fear, especially as the city grows and traffic increases. And they are not as comfortable driving in new roads because Bowling Green has grown so fast, and parking and all. We found that some like driving in, parking, and then riding transit to wherever they need to go throughout the town. So we have worked closely with Western and the Bowling Green Warren County MPO, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organization, to increase and improve services over the years. And recently, Western and we have come up with a tentative agreement. We haven't signed anything yet, but we are planning to increase frequency on the Purple Line in the fall. And that is the line or the route that runs between the Kroger's shopping center area on Nashville Road, 31W, to the junior high, and then towards the campus and that section of downtown and back. And that's the only route that is a 30-minute route. So that has the most frequency now. And they are willing to double that frequency and pay for it, like 6 hours a day when school is in session. So I think that demonstrates the value. Yes, sir.
They who?
Western.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So all the other buses are 60-minute routes, and this one's going to go to 30-minute routes.
It's already a 30-minute route.
And it's going to go
And
to
they're
15?
going to double it so
And
that
do
it runs every 15 minutes.
Okay. I
I
understand
mean,
that.
we'll provide the service, they will provide the cost. Okay?
Thank you.
You said to junior high. Why to Bowling Green Junior High?
Because it's not just the junior high, but we want to provide transportation for our school students too. They need rides after school. They need to sometimes have rides to school. We have custodial staff that works at our schools. And like I said, it's not just the junior high, it's the housing across the street.
Okay.
But I'm showing you the route where it goes from Kroger's down Campbell Lane, then up, then towards
And it starts
Western.
back to Western.
and
So does it
then-
go down Small House Road?
No, ma'am.
Turns back around Campbell Lane. Goes back. Okay.
Okay. So it seems like a perfect fit if we've got a bus and a driver that's going to increase frequency part of the day. If we can come up with some additional funds, we could increase frequency on another route a few hours of the day. And believe it's the blue line. If you look at some of the information that we gave you, the blue line has the highest ridership and would make the most sense to increase frequency if we were just going to be able to increase frequency on one of the other routes.
Are we looking at the chart, or what are you looking at? What page?
Looks
This one.
like,
Can you describe the blue route for everybody? Can you describe it?
let's see. Okay. Yes, it looks like this. You don't have that one?
No, we don't have that one.
What's it say at the top? Route totals by hour?
Fiscal year 2013 route total by hour.
Did you put that in there?
There may be another one too.
Okay, I'm sorry, I do have that. I apologize, Joe, it's this one.
But anyway, I think we need to hear from you all and our citizens. With the MPO, we've already talked about conducting a survey, not only of our passengers, but of the city. We need to know from our current passengers what is most important to them, but we also want to know from those who are not riding, who might ride, what's most important to them. But obviously it depends upon what kind of commitment or resources we're looking at. And so I would hope that at some point there could be some planning so that the system can know how to grow and expand. For instance, we took the liberty of coming up with a couple of ideas just to kind of help put a picture to it. If we increased frequency on Route 2, the blue line, at half.
What is the blue line?
Okay, Route 2 on this.
We don't have that.
Okay. Okay. This information is
Thank you.
available downstairs and on the city website. Okay, these are our routes. Okay. The blue line runs from Beauty Avenue down at our office. It runs to the Western Green shopping centers, to the Technical College, to the Walmart, to Western, to the library, to the medical center in Graves Gilbert. So that's the blue line. And you can see, just like my example where I said the junior high, certainly those are not the only places that route travels. But that is the most popular route currently. Let me let you process that.
So anyone can get picked up at any of these points along the blue route. They don't have to come to community action to get picked up.
That's correct.
Okay.
And you may, Cheryl, I'm sorry, and you may be getting to this, but the impact of moving the system down on Center Street, I'm sure that has helped somewhat.
Yes. With this, when we developed these routes last February, you'll notice that now only two of the routes, the red line and the blue line, start down on Beauty Avenue. And then two of them, green and yellow, start and end down here on Center Street, across from the post office. So now you don't have to travel down where you may not need to go, but it increases their convenience. And then the purple line doesn't come to either one of those starts.
If someone, if the bus just pulls away as they come up ready to ride it, but they miss it by a minute, but they've missed it, how long will they stand there before the bus will come back
About
around?
50 minutes.
50.
That's why you want to increase frequency.
Exactly.
Because then, if it's running on the half hour or in the purple line, you're only going to have to wait 25 minutes or 10 minutes. That's the perfect example. And if you get out of your doctor's appointment, you don't feel like waiting 50 minutes and then you got to get back to work. So you got to wait to catch the bus to get there.
Under the blue line, why is the route taken through WKU? I can understand, let's say a person gets on at Grant or Grant and Agora, and they want to go to Walmart, I can understand that, or go to Graves Gilbert. Who gets picked up at the university? At Gary Ransdell Hall, or?
We transport students to Western, and we transport students off campus as well. We
Okay.
have local commuters.
But the only problem is their only place they're going is somewhere downtown. If you get picked up at Normal, you're not going out on Scottsville Road. You're going to either the Med Center or back to Beauty or to College View. I mean, it's a very select group of university students who happen to live in a specific
Most
rental.
of the Western students ride the Purple Line.
Okay.
But I mean, it
Also-
all depends on where you live
Would there also not be
and
the
where you're going to
potential
work.
of a transfer?
Right. There are a lot of our riders will transfer. They may get on a route that serves a neighborhood, their point of origin, but then they will transfer to the route that serves the destination that they're going to. So the whole program is available to any rider. Transfers are no additional charge. They're valid for 1 hour. So any rider getting on anywhere on the system, and anywhere you see a star on the map is a connection point. That doesn't mean that the buses will be there at exactly the same minute, but instead of having to ride all the way across town to transfer to another bus, if you were at Walmart on off of Campbell Lane on Route 3, you have a connection point with Route 4 right in front of Bluegrass Cellular, for instance. We have tried to get a consistent spacing of 2 blocks between routes and 2 blocks between stops to optimize the funding that we have available today. But the connection points give you the ability to fill the transfer without having to ride back across town. And that transfer is no additional charge. Once you pay your initial fare, the driver will give you a transfer card that you present to the driver of the next bus. And they are valid for 1 hour. So if that individual does have to transfer twice to get somewhere that's off the beaten path of where they want to go, then they only pay 1 fare to get there. And they can utilize 3 routes to get to the destination.
I believe I'm correct in that the example Mr. Pebo gave us on Route 2, that staying on it at a point they reach the State Street stop there in the vicinity of State Street and 11th around the food stamp offices. And from there they have the opportunity to transfer to Route 1, 3, and 4, but just walking like a block or a block and a half to the stops that are right there at the transit center. So the connectivity is an important piece, and understanding how you can connect is a really important piece of the route system.
So a student picked up on Normal by the routing scheme can go all throughout the city by connections?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the idea is not only to get them to Western, but to get those students from Western out in our community.
Okay.
To participate, to volunteer, to purchase, and to enjoy the community. On Normal Boulevard, we have 2 routes. Route 5 runs one way on Normal, Route 2 runs the opposite way. So they do have a route reversal option right through the heart of campus for either getting to or from campus.
Compare that to Western Shuttle. Is this overlapping at all, Western Shuttle service?
We serve the perimeter of campus. Western serves to the heart of campus. There are
But-
some points that we do connect. We have 15 points at this moment. It's all changing with their parking lot. But 15 points where someone riding to go BG Transit could get off of our bus and get on a Western's bus to go to the heart of campus. No, we don't run over the top of them on the same routes. But on some of the parallel corridors, it is necessary that we run some of the same streets to get one side of campus to the other. So we are trying to work with Western's campus. In fact, with the plans that they've submitted this fall, they are planning on having a bus stop at the transit center downtown. So we're working on a 2-way interconnectivity. And this is not only for students, but for faculty, staff, all of the service personnel, for our citizens in the community that may be going up for play production, for academic or athletic endeavors that they're participating in on campus. So they don't have to buy a parking permit on Western's campus to access it.
And that's, all this waiting time and connectivity, it speaks to the value of those benches and shelters. And some of you know that last week we had a pretty rainy day, a couple of days, I think. And so that's not very comfortable when you're out there waiting for the bus, especially when people have had to walk a ways or may have a disability.
Cheryl,
So,
can I ask you about bus stops bus shelters and the benches? Why does a shelter cost $35,000?
that's the cost of the shelter and the concrete and all the work that has to be done to make it ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, accessible, safe, and secure,
$35,000.
roughly.
And that is a 30-year rated shelter. You can go with less money, and they'll be replacing them a whole lot faster. After Hurricane Sandy, some of the structures that were left standing, the main structures left were the bus shelters, which had invested in a good quality where when someone takes shelter in a shelter, it will hold up and protect them. With bus shelters, you get what you pay for. You can get one that's half that money and be replacing it in a 10-year period on a replacement schedule. But they all include the concrete pad, the curb work, the drainage around it. So if it doesn't flood before, it doesn't flood after we put a shelter in. The ADA textured pad and any other enhancements required to meet the FDA ADA guidelines for that location. Our newest shelters will have solar LED lighting with a solar panel. The cost had been cost prohibitive to run an electric meter to each shelter, and a high voltage risk of electrocution for vandals or children or others that are there. But with our new shelters at that rate, we'll be getting solar LED lighting with the motion detector for when someone goes in the shelter, the lights will turn on for a specified time, about 20 minutes. Then they'll turn off. They move in the shelter again, the motion detector will turn the lights back on at that long again. So we're looking at getting more for the money with each one. But if you look at the oldest shelters in our system now that have been out there for about 8 years, they are still in great condition. And that's because of the quality of the shelter that we've invested in. And if you go to some of the other areas that are buying the inexpensive shelters en masse, when you have broken glass and shards and Sharpies there, it is a hazard in the community. So we could look at a lesser price of shelter, but it's a pay now or pay later to do that.
Have you looked at coordinating with the Evening Lions Club? I know that they give benches around everywhere. I think the Public Works Director gets to decide where they get placed, so I'm sure they'd be happy to place them at no cost to Community Action if you needed a place to sit down, or is they're not qualified to sit on either?
Well, if I may speak to that, I've worked with them on a number of locations, but the Evening Lions Club, this is a revenue generator for them for all the phenomenal work that they do. And we work with them with their ADA clients, referring for vision enhancement for magnifiers and glasses, and refer a number of our ADA applicants to the Lions program. They need their benches where they are highly visible for the advertisers to want to place ads on them. And this means at intersections, a lot of the areas are not ADA accessible, which anything that we do with a bench, we have to have an area that a wheelchair can wait also. And they want their benches at the intersections for the optimal visibility, where our stops have to be at least 600 feet away from the intersection. We have worked with them on a number of them, and where possible.
I know we've talked, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I know we've talked about this probably for over a year, about the possibility, and we probably have to change some things, but do some advertising on the shelters themselves. Is that something that you all would be interested in if we could make that happen?
Very. By local ordinance, we are prohibited advertising on our bus shelters as off-site advertising. It is prohibited. In larger communities, they will have an outdoor advertising firm that does billboards. They bid it, for instance, Clark in Louisville has Lamar Advertising. Nashville has it. They come in and provide the bus shelters, the installation, the maintenance, the cleaning, and the upkeep, in return for a large portion, 60 to 70% of the advertising revenue. The advertising on them is like a movie poster. It's a double-sided glass enclosure that's off of an alarm that it's hanging in. If you're around Louisville or Nashville, you can look and readily see them. It's not plastered all over it. It's very tastefully done. It is lit with the solar LED system, and the revenues from that advertising pays for the installation and maintenance of the shelter. Our goal had been to get enough initial shelters that if we went out to bid with these advertising firms, that they would consider it worthwhile to come to Bowling Green, Kentucky. We are not Louisville, we're not Nashville, we don't have 1,000 shelters. But if we can get enough that it's worthwhile for them to stop off in Bowling Green and tend them, then that's another revenue stream that we would like to consider in the future as the ordinances and the city directs. But the way the laws are currently written, we cannot provide advertising at our shelter locations. We are looking at additional advertising revenues from advertising on our buses. I've been busy this morning putting clean ads on some of our buses, and our advertising revenue stream with our full-size transit buses. We have interest in drafting 3 of them at this time. There's nothing signed as far as contract, but I have verbal commitments for 3 of those buses and inquiries on the 4th one. So we are looking at other ways that we can generate revenue to help sustain the system. And we will be open to any other ideas that the FTA and the city and the state will permit us to do that will generate additional outside revenue stream.
You mentioned Lions Club. Have you talked to other civic organizations about benches or shelters, sponsoring those?
No, but we do have a public transit advisory council, and at one of the meetings it was shared that Greenways might have some money, I believe, but it was some organization, and so we've got those kinds of notes, and that's why it's important to have that advisory council to get input from others in the community. We're not operating this alone. Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to remember the word tasteful in
Yes,
all this.
absolutely.
And as Ken mentioned, maybe the bus stops in Louisville are a little nicer. It's not the plastered all over signs, and maybe you have to be careful about all the types of advertisement
Because
that's allowed on them.
We've had organizations build shelters that do not meet code and that do not weather as well. And so there is cost involved, but you also know what you're getting and can maintain the quality when we're.
We have saw other partners for benches, BGMU for instance.
They put in.
Installed a concrete pad and a shelter for their clients. And my spiel to the businesses is, your customers are our customers. How can we best serve them? The thing about the benches and the amenities placed on property is we are going on, in most instances, onto private property. So we get into their drainage, and when you place a shelter, not only the footprint of the shelter, but you're blocking advertising, you're eliminating parking. There are several other concerns that we have to address with each location and make sure that the good outweighs that it's a positive location. We have 2 new shelters. We'd like to thank the city and Mr. Brent especially for all of his help with the CDBG funding. We're out to bid and getting ready to open the bid for 2 new shelters. One will be at the Sky Technical College campus, which will serve their campus, Warren Elementary School, and Skyline Village Mobile Home Park, as well as surrounding community. Our second one will be going in on 12th Street, and it will serve the Bowling Green Towers, the Warren County Public Library, and the surrounding community, which we have a high residency of elderly and students in that community. It's a historic neighborhood that surrounds it. So we're looking at locations for shelters, but trying to work with the city and make it a positive win-win for everybody where we're placed.
Yes, sir.
Explain to us, or maybe teach us about the logic of routing. Is routing designed to eventually provide connectivity between all places in the community, or hopefully all places in the community, or is it destination oriented? For example, on Saturday, the yellow route you run second Saturday, where would somebody on Adams Street be needing to go on the Saturday or planning to go? Is there a destination, or is that just... I'm trying to figure out the difference between connectivity and destination routing.
Okay, the third element is origin. We have to go where they are initially to get them into the system. Okay. And we have to be where they start their trip from.
Okay.
So we have to serve the residential, near residential, and areas that people can access the system initially from. Then we look at destinations at high traffic. We tried with the routing to develop each route as a standalone entity so that if someone was physically disabled, that they could get all of the services that they need along that one route. That there be grocery stores, department stores, barber shops, beauty shops, the places that they need to go most often that they would not have to transfer to another route to access. This puts part of this on them, that they may have to change their vendor to be able to access it. Or if their preference is the other vendor, then they have to transfer to another bus to get there. But we've tried to make it as accessible as we can. One of our major problems with our routes now is our routes are a circulator, they're a circular design. We started in 1983, I say we, the ones that were there before me, 1993, pardon me, with no public transit in the city of Bowling Green.
I'm sure somebody's playing today.
We have built it to 5 routes. To do that, we have to use those 5 routes to serve as much area as we can. For instance, Scottsville Road, if a bus goes out, if it's a linear design, and the bus goes out that road and back in that road, it is only serving Scottsville Road. But even if the bus is on a 1-hour headway, it takes it an hour to make the route. The people on that route have a 30-minute frequency because they can catch it going out or they can catch it coming back in by crossing the road. When you do a circular, like most of our routes are, you go out one route and back in another road so that you can serve twice the area with one route. This is where enhancing the service and looking at additional frequency, and there are a number of options that could be explored with it, would increase the availability of transit, not only the time period, but by making the routes more linear. Then each route, if it runs out and back in the same road, people would have 30-minute frequency on that route. Right now, we're trying to do with 5 routes what Bourne Transit and Neil Schaefer, that came in with one of our MPO studies, said we need 12 routes to serve this community. This study was done in 2011, and it was looking at statistics from 2010. And looking at that, they said we need 12 routes with 20 buses running at that time to serve Bowling Green the way it should be served. And this was an outside professional consulting firm. And what they were looking at with 20 buses running was having 20-minute frequency on the primary routes that we're operating now. Making our routes more linear where they go out and back in the same route. Extending coverage to areas that we're presently not serving for a number of reasons, for employment, for medical, for access. And we're looking at our city right now, expanding the city limits again. Every time they move out, we have citizens that want to go to those new services that are further out. We are by no means meeting all the needs of this community. I deal with, on a daily basis, our riders and their requests. And I'll throw you a couple of examples. A young lady that's staying at Brass, and I don't know what had put her there, but she's been through a lot in her life, working at a fast food restaurant that they are offering overtime to her. But she cannot work it because the bus doesn't run late enough that she can get back to Brass. So she's declining overtime. A gentleman that has an opportunity for another job, but he has to start earlier in the morning than what we're operating. But we can only do what we can with what we've got.
And Ken, let me interrupt you there for a second. These are not isolated incidents
No,
either.
not
This
by-
isn't just one or two people saying this. This is a number of people who are having those issues.
And from the program that you've been working with, and transit included, and I'd like to thank you for that, it has broadened the scope of the people that are able to voice how they're being affected. It affects people with job availability. The cost of a car right now in this country is just under $10,000 per year. Each of us that has children that are in college, minor items, start to look at granddaughters now going to college. If we're looking at almost $10,000 per car per year, and they're going to be going to college for 4 years, that's $40,000 out of the family budget. If we can eliminate that one car out and get them to the college, the barber college, the beauty college, the technical college, where they want to go, without having to have a car, and they can buy our student pass, which is $50 a semester. So on one hand, we've got $40,000. On the other end, we've got $400. This is every family in this community that could be a savings while our family member is going on with their education. We are trying to hit the high-density apartment complexes. We're trying to link up with Western so that the students that are in the on-campus housing can come out into the community to work, to spend their money, to volunteer, whatever they're coming out for. But it's a two-way street to Western. It's a two-way street to the technical. It's a two-way street to the medical center. We've got people that are going there as clients and patients, but we also have them going there as employees. And Bowling Green is a fantastic community, but when you start looking at some of the ratings that have been done on the community in the past years, our walkability and the transit are two areas that we've been gigged on. And I can't stand here before you and tell you that we're meeting all the needs of our community. We're meeting all of the needs that we can with the present funding available. And we appreciate everything that we're getting from the city, the county, the state, the federal, the advertising revenues, the other revenues by partnering with Western.
The county's giving you money?
Pardon?
Did you say the county was giving you money?
They are giving us, yeah, that's
How much do they give you?
$12,500.
$12,500 per year. That's what we get from the county government.
What does it go for?
It goes into our general fund for operating expenses. So we
For
use
the transit system?
public transit.
Okay.
Transit, yes, sir.
Thanks.
A question, I don't know who wants to address this. I was glad you brought up businesses, and I'm definitely all for getting our citizens to work. And trip I've been on, by 2016, we're going to need 4,500 manufacturing jobs. Is there any work in progress to actually partner with businesses? Let them assure you that they will have so many riders on this transit system, so many per day, certain times. You all make a commitment to those businesses that those employees will be on work on time, and in return, if all of a sudden they need overtime, that bus will be there to pick up those 20 employees or whatever it is. Has there been any talk or work toward that?
This is an ongoing discussion that I have with a number of businesses in the community, with the larger employers. The things that we face with this is, one, is most people that go to work in manufacturing or upper scale jobs, if they do not have a vehicle to begin with, one of their first goals is to get a vehicle. And when they do, then they go off of the transit. So it's a building, and they don't stay as transit-dependent riders. There is a program in our community that's called Job Access Reverse Commute. It's a federal program. It requires a 50% match for the program. And it is being administered by the Housing Authority of Bowling Green because they can use HUD funding for the match. This program pays for a taxi voucher or a stipend for 6 months for an individual with a new job. They have to meet some income requirements, they have to be in Warren County, and they have to be taking a job in Warren County. The JARC program is a great program for startup to this. We have looked at it. The problem that we get into is the hours of operation. we can get them during the day shift. But then if they're going to work in the evenings shift, with our present funding, we cannot afford to operate the extended hours. The guaranteed ride home is another part of the program, so that if they got sick or a family member was sick or injured, that they wouldn't have to wait for the bus so that they could. And these are the considerations that have to go into making that program viable. TARC is doing it with UPS, with Jewish Hospital, and a number of others on a large scale because of parking and other issues. And when it gets to that scale, and it can be free employment by federal law, that they can take the funding for the transportation to a certain level out pre-tax. But it does have to be through the employer, and it has to be of a large enough scale that a transit can afford. You cannot afford to operate a 40-passenger bus for 2 people.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
And I don't
so
want
it
you
would-
to.
yeah.
I'd be very disappointed if you were doing that.
So startup on these programs, and then sustainability. All the programs that we start, we look at sustainability. Can we afford to do them in the future? Will the need be there? Because it takes as much effort to start a program that's going to run for 20 days as it does one that we can keep viable for 20 years. So we're striving for sustainability in the system.
And hours of operation is a good point. On the menu that we gave you, those dollar amounts are based on current operating hours. If we were to expand the hours, extend the day, do Saturdays or Sundays, that would be an additional cost because these do not include any overhead. We've already got staff on board, the lights on during those operating hours. But when you go to operating extended hours, additional days, then you have to build in that support cost for dispatch and supervisors on site and those things as well. A lot of information to process, isn't there?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned the 20-minute frequency. From what you gave us, it would cost almost $10 million to achieve the idealized scenario to meet our needs, at least right now. Barring that, what of your menu of things offered would be the most efficacious, would serve the greatest amount of people and with the lowest amount of cost of the menu you've given us?
Okay. The lowest cost serve the most people.
Yes.
Okay.
Unless someone else wants to add to that scenario.
That's why we proposed and I want to be careful with cost. I'm not sure if all of you all are aware that this service is now out for bid, and cost is part of that bid evaluation. I
don't think you'll have a lot of competition. Maybe though. Who knows?
Okay.
Maybe we're teaming up with the new cable companies that are coming in town.
If I could interject one thing
I'm
with the
sorry.
cost. During existing hours, our overhead is lower. When you look at transit, frequency is to transit what location is to property. When you look at property, you look at location, location, location. When people look at transit, they look at frequency. People do not like to wait. They value their time. A wait beyond 11 minutes is a national standard of what is acceptable, and we're at 59 minutes. The addition of frequency is the most cost effective because we are already meeting the ADA component. Everywhere that we operate a fixed route bus, we must operate Americans with Disabilities Act ADA paratransit service to any individual that cannot get to or from the bus stop. This could be an individual that is in a wheelchair or a powered scooter and there is not a sidewalk, so we cannot require them to go down the travel portion of the road. It could be someone that has a visual problem that they cannot see to cross the road to get to the bus stop. It could be someone with a mental concern that they cannot be in crowds. It could be anything that prevents them from accessing the existing bus stops would qualify them for the ADA paratransit. The ADA paratransit service is a door-to-door service, so we charge $4 per trip each way. and attendant rides at no additional charge. So anywhere that we expand our fixed routes, we have to expand our ADA core area to encompass it. The guideline is a minimum of 3/4 of a mile as the crow flies from a fixed route. So 1.5 quarter through the community. Everywhere you add a fixed route, we will have to add the ADA paratransit support.
Does that mean that you have a separate bus for each bus line to go out there? Or you have one guy that covers them all?
At least one, possibly during peak period, because all of the doctor's offices want everybody there at 8:30 in the morning and 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we have to have them there with them on time for their appointment. There is an on-time requirement.
How much of that is what is your total budget?
I could speak to you from the FY13
Please.
figures.
May I answer Senator
City
Mr.
manager.
DeFebo's question?
What's his name?
Okay. I recommend that the first increase that the city consider would be the fourth option, which would be to add 1/2 full-time route equivalent of service to existing areas. And let us base that using existing buses. That counts the new Gilligs, we'll get them from Louisville, but we don't have to buy any new buses. Because obviously these, when it says using existing buses, that means we're not including any capital having to buy new buses. But let us increase frequency in our current service area. That would increase our ADA passengers' opportunities as well as all of our routes. But that's the most cost efficient for the most people, sir.
Thank you. That's.
Okay.
I was hoping that. Actually, I had circled that one for some reason. I don't know
And
why.
then I have recommendations for each year after that. This comes from one of the reporting systems that we report to, the National Transit Database, for last year. And our operating budget was $1,438,349.
How much from fees, from ridership? 27%, 30%, something like that?
I think we saw, let me see what I got here. We also have a city funding request before you for consideration. Last year, it was about 120,000. We had fees, and then
120,000
some
what?
others.
What was that 120,000 for?
Fares and passes and ridership.
The 1.4 million that you mentioned, you called it operating fund. Is there another fund?
Well, there's capital, and last year, I'm trying to think what we had for the capital. But that, like this year in our capital budget, we have the 70,000 for the CDBG shelters, and then new vehicles. So that's the capital budget.
So just the two funds that you operate under
Right,
down
and
there?
then the planning is so small, it's about 15,000. That's separate. We don't know how much we're getting next year from anybody.
These funds are primarily federal formula funds, which Federal Transit Administration has a formula that takes in population density, number of riders, number of routes, there's a number of elements that go into it. It is, I think, misrepresentative to look at the fare box return on a public transit. If we compare it to Scottsville Road, from the days that Scottsville Road was a cow path or a buffalo trace or whatever it started out, the people started traveling that way. Through the time that it was gravel, that it was a two-lane road, and then widened to what it is now. Scottsville Road has not paid $1 to anyone. It has been a cost for paving, lighting, sewers, law enforcement,
How much
all.
on your federal funds, we match that 50/50, is that correct?
Somebody has to. The city does not match it 50/50.
Okay,
We-
so the federal amount of that is $750,000.
The operating has to be 50/50. Capital is 80/20. Planning is 90/10. And that's why we've used some of the capital funds for operating expenses to reduce the match.
So the
Now, go ahead.
of the 1.4 million, half of that comes from the city and half of that comes from the federal government?
No, last year, the city contributed $222,000 in cash. And let me see here. Yes.
We had 237,110. I don't know if that's accurate.
237 for this year,
Yeah.
right.
We use in-kind, where we place a shelter, where we have a bus lot. The difference, we have vendors that have reserved parking and maintenance facilities for us, so we don't have to pay for storage if we have a bus in waiting for parks. All of that is federally approved in-kind, which we don't pay out, but we don't have to pay it out.
So the city absorbs that cost for the between the 720 to 237, that extra 500,000 we have as in-kind contributions.
Yeah,
is that
107
correct?
in kind.
Beg
107,000 in kind.
107,000.
The in-kind goes toward the match.
Okay.
Yes.
Where does the rest of them? So you got the 237 and the 107 and the
All right.
120 in fares.
No,
That doesn't add up to 720 yet. I'm still
No.
looking for the rest of the
No,
money.
you're using two different fiscal years. And I'm looking at this city budget, but it's complicated more because the federal public transit grant is on an October through September fiscal year.
Okay, we
Okay.
we can get to a
Okay.
broad figure of
But
it.
the city contributes $237,110.
In cash and 107 in kind.
Right.
Where does the additional money come from to meet the 50% match? Would the 120 fares come into that?
Okay. I think it would be easier if we get you a copy of the city application that has been submitted. This was as of April the 9th.
Is it fair to say, to answer the mayor's
The fares
question?
for this year are on track to be over 100,000.
Is it heavily leveraged from federal money? Without the federal government's involvement,
federal
this wouldn't even be viable.
No.
Okay.
No, it's over $1 million.
Right.
The fare box revenue is taken off of the federal portion. The more we take in for fares, the less money we get from the federal government.
The
So if
knowledge,
we increase fares to try and generate more revenue like a private would, then we're gonna get that much less from the federal government each month. When it's submitted to the FDA, the fare box revenue component is taken off of the apportionment.
the example would be if you had $100,000 in expenses this month and you had $20,000 in fare box revenue, you deduct that, you have $80,000 left divided by 2, you would access $40,000 federal and need to provide $40,000 locally, which can be a combination of in-kind and actual cash.
I want to go back to something to make sure I heard correctly, Cheryl. So you said the city of Bowling Green's giving, depending on the year, over $200,000, correct, toward this program?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
That's fine. Warren County government is only giving $12,500? That's it? Did I hear that correctly?
Right now, yes, ma'am.
Any likelihood you're going to go to them for more money?
Um,
I don't understand why we're getting so much.
Because the city of Bowling Green is the public transit grantee.
Okay.
Okay. If you all, I mean, because you subcontract to us, but it is the city of Bowling Green's.
Which is a part of Warren County.
But the money comes to the city of Bowling
Okay.
Green, not to the county.
Okay.
The entity of the city of Bowling Green. And then you all have decided to bid that service, which we have operated. So that's why, again, we come to you to see what kind of growth or changes you want in the system. And we have come up with a variety of resources, and per the city manager's suggestions a couple of years ago, we started advertising on the buses. And is that the 30,000 in revenue that we have this year? And we're projecting over 36,000 in revenue from that source next year. So we've continued to find additional sources of revenue.
Is that identified under 15 other receipts on page 6 of the agency application?
Pardon?
On your application for funding for this fiscal year, the document that you turned in to Katie in April, on page 6, it's the operating budget. And I'm trying to identify these funds here. Program services fees are $89,000. That's line number 11 on page 6.
Yes, sir.
What's that?
That's fares from actual
Okay.
riders. But then you can also look at number 11, which is fares from Western, and
Okay, I thought we were on 11. Which one? Western is 11?
Oh, wait, sorry. Looking at the sources here.
I'm sorry, I just don't feel like I know what I'm talking about here. So, okay.
And yes, I mean, even if we just stick with line 11, last year they were 89,000. This year we projected 100, but I think we're on track to exceed that.
Okay. All right. What are you selling on supplies, line 13? Advertising?
That's the advertising on
Okay.
the buses.
The other receipts, line 15, $372,800. I guess that's about where I calculated I was short. So it's identified as miscellaneous.
That's our in-kind match.
From the city?
All of us. No, you do not provide all of that. Community Action, the owners that provide the space for shelters.
Okay.
All kinds of
Okay, I got
sources
you.
come up with
I
the
got you.
in-kind match.
All right.
I think, didn't you say you all committed 100,000 in maintenance and fuel?
107.
107.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Kentucky gives us money for, on line 3, $15,000. They actually give us money for what? Does that go into capital or is that planning?
52,000? Sorry, you know I have trouble hearing, and this room is really hard.
On line 3, 15,000 from Kentucky.
Yes.
Is that for planning?
No, that's
Staff?
for capital match.
Capital match, okay.
So that depends upon how many capital dollars we have and if the state will award any to us. That depends on their budget and their decisions.
What's associated organizations under number 20? 20,000. I'm sorry, line 8, 20,000.
Let me see here. Page 6.
Another item that we're not mentioning on that for now is toll credits, where we're making capital purchases having to have local match. If we get 8% federal and 20% toll credits, that decreases our purchasing power by the 20%. But it does enable us to access the federal funds for capital purchases to bring them to Bowling Green from Texas without the city or the state having to provide the match. And as far as we can, we are utilizing toll credits to be able to access and draw down more of our federal tax dollars back to this community.
Okay, associated organizations are some programs within Community Action, our senior center and foster grandparent program.
Okay, so you
who
transfer funds within
pay
the
to ride the
different
bus,
programs.
but it's not under fares because the seniors themselves are not paying for it.
I understand.
And they've both had funding cuts, so that's why it's got down from 20 to 15.
Are your toll credits accounted for as a revenue source, and are they listed here on this?
The toll credits count as match, but they don't buy anything.
Yeah, they're not revenue because they cannot purchase anything with them.
So it's not counted as revenue, it's just a decrease in the expenditure that you end up making, okay.
They're an offset of match required, but they have no purchase.
Okay. All right, back to you, Mr. Fedville.
Cheryl, if the commission would agree to give more money for additional routing, would that hurt you with the feds, or would it be neutral? Did you hear me okay?
If you all allocated additional money,
Right.
then what about the feds?
Would it hurt you with the feds getting money from that, or would it have a neutral impact?
It would not affect the federal budget at all.
All right, thank you.
And when we talk, maybe a good time to say something about routes. If you add routes, obviously I continually hear Lover's Lane and Louisville Road. Those two, you all may hear things other than that, but those to me seem to be the two most mentioned routes.
I hear a lot about being able to get to life skills,
Yeah.
which is Lover's Lane. Yeah.
Yes, we do too.
And that is, again, an issue dealing with quality of life, health issues. And I had a conversation with Ken sometime last fall to say how much would it cost to add a route such as Lover's Lane or Louisville Road.
300 grand, right?
That is one of the examples that we gave you.
Right.
It's the one right above the $10 million one, about $300,000 a year, because you're adding the cost of a new route, full route, plus the ADA route. And we hashed this back and forth, again, back to all those different choices and who wants to do what. And this is one of the issues that we've discussed at length with the various consultants as well. Again, back to the city. What kind of system do you want for Bowling Green? If you want us to build a social service system where our primary purpose is to serve those who are just transit dependent, then we would need to go to Lover's Lane. If you want to serve the whole community, to go to school, to work, and improve the social service system, then you increase frequency in a core. Okay? Not that we don't want to expand, but first, our recommendation is let's increase within the core.
My reason for that, there's a couple reasons for asking that. One is you all have supplied us with a lot of information that we're not, obviously the public is not getting from this conversation. But again, I want people to understand the enormous cost involved here as well.
And I don't think, sometimes I don't get it either, but I don't think that's what you meant. But that was a good question or a good point to make. You know, what kind of bus service are we going to provide? Because if the public is expecting us to provide what you see in Louisville or even the smaller community like Owensboro, you have to keep in mind that they're serving a much smaller physical space. We're, 40 square miles, and it takes you 30 minutes to get from one end of town to the other. We have developed a very large city area-wise, so to be able to pull up to every neighborhood and provide 20-minute bus service is I think unrealistic for our budget purposes anyway. Well, I've got a lot to absorb. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
One thing when I was reviewing this, and if there was a chance we were going to give more funding, what I would like to see to start it out is if you keep these routes but increase services on those, is to do different routes, like some on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, the others Tuesday, Thursday, and citizens could train, they could learn that there's extra routes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to the doctor's office, or it's on Tuesday and Thursday. Hopefully they will learn, and the doctor's offices will learn that's when they need to schedule these appointments. I know, just a thought, but it seems like that would help not do everything the same every single day.
Okay.
One recommendation that we have had is to increase peak hours on the routes. If we could increase the peak hours on multiple routes, then you increase the connection options also at that time. So the individual that needs to transfer from one bus to another would not have to wait 30 minutes for the bus, an hour for the bus to get to some locations and 30 minutes in others. And the density of population is one major obstacle in designing routes in this community. When you look at part of the information that we've provided you, it shows miles traveled per ride versus some other communities. You can see readily that a person going from Forest Park community to Greenwood Mall has a whole lot longer ride than you would have in a lot of other communities for the same amount of services that you're going to get. We are very sparsely populated compared to a lot of other communities. So our buses do have to go further to serve the same amount of people and the same number of origins and destinations. The ride is longer. So that is an increased cost when you're operating, when you look at the per capita and breaking it out. If I can go down a block in New York City, and in a 3-block period I can pick up 10,000 people because of the density of the population, where in our community in that same distance, you might do good to pick up 100 people. That really plays into our cost of operating. So I'd like to make the merit of pointing that out. That is a major obstacle to us providing the services that we are, is we have to travel further with every route, every time, to give people, the same number of people, access to our buses.
Well, you've given us a lot to consider. Is there anything else you have?
Yeah,
something?
just
Yes,
another
sir.
comment, if you don't mind. What I'd like to see, I know what Melinda said, I think was pretty much on target as far as, how do we step into this? And I know that we can't solve these problems in a 1 budget year cycle, 2 budget year cycles. I know that money is obviously is an important ingredient in this. But what I'd like to see us in this budget year, I'd like to see us increase the frequency. And if that's the 160,000, then I'd like to see that. But I also would like to see a long-term plan. I'm trying, 1, so that you all can operate, but 2, so that the public could know that we're addressing these issues. We have a long-term plan on sidewalks. We need a long-term plan on public transportation. All of this has to do, again, with quality of life. It has to do with economic development. It has to do with health. It has to do with the vitality of our community. And so those are the things I'd like to see come out of this. I don't want to see this to be the conversation, and all this is complicated and it's frustrating for us, but it is more frustrating for the people who need the service and are not getting it.
And I'd like to see each of you step on the bus and ride it, at least around the square.
Ken had to put up with me. I've ridden the bus, yeah.
Please.
He had to put up with
Yes.
me. Yeah, he had me captive for a long time. That's what kind of started some of this too. A long time. He had me
See
captive.
our beautiful city and see the areas that you probably don't see very often, and listen to our riders. But thank you for listening to us. And I want to thank our staff today, but also our drivers and our maintenance staff who work rain, sleet, snow, sun, and with our public.
Okay, one more thing, I'm sorry.
Okay, and he had something too.
Okay, so our students, okay, I'm going to ride one of these. What do I do? I'm new to this city, I'm picking this up, but I'm clueless. So where can I go? Where can I pay my money? And where's the best place for me to?
Well, it depends on, like he said, where your origin is. But
Okay.
there's a bus stop right
City
out
Hall?
here,
Okay, so which route am I going to be on then if I'm going to get on the bus right here?
and you pay the driver.
Pay the driver,
Yeah, right
okay,
where the green line.
Okay. You be on the green line.
okay.
And
pay the driver
College
$2.
Street.
Yeah, how
You
much
get
am
on
I
at
paying the driver?
31 minutes after the hour.
$2?
$2 if you don't buy a pass.
Okay.
But
So,
if you
and I
buy a
need to have
$5
$2
pass, you can
cash.
ride 5 times for $1.
Okay. Can I buy that pass as soon as I get on the bus?
Yes, ma'am.
You can also identify yourself as being new to transit, and oh my goodness, we don't make change on the buses for safety. You only have a $20 bill. We say, welcome to the transit. Here's a first-time rider pass for this trip, and here is another one for your return trip home.
Great. So what time do I need to be at this bus stop? What times can I be at this bus stop, I should say?
Well, you need to be there by 29 after because it could run early and you don't want to miss it.
So that's what this 30 means. It runs every 30
Yes,
minutes.
30
Okay.
minutes after the hour, 18 minutes after
So
the
I could be
hour,
here at 6:29 in the morning.
7:29.
On the green line, you said?
Oh, yeah, this one
Starts at
does,
6:30.
it
Okay,
starts
so-
down
That's what
here
size
from
of it
6:30.
is.
Okay. I knew y'all get a kick out of that. That's why I said that. Okay.
But that's the one thing about 1 hour frequency. is it
won't
is
pull off
definitely
because she
not
won't be there.
Okay,
It was
but
30-minute
everything.
frequency.
Okay.
May I just?
That's
no.
great, thank you. And
Let me finish.
I think it's important our citizens understand that because the unknown often is scary. They may not use it because they don't understand how it works. So thank you.
Have you used our social media capability to do any kind of programming, any kind of?
We have not been on the TV for some time.
That would be great.
It might be helpful.
We'd like to.
Can I make a comment?
One more
Okay.
before you do, Bill, get something.
Yeah, only to say that what I said about looking at frequency first, there is still a dire need in this community to have, obviously, the routes looked at, but the days and the hours.
Yes,
We can't
yes.
minimize those issues. That's the reason I say a long-term plan, so that the community knows at a certain point that we are going to address those. Okay.
Is this the harsh reality? There is no free ride. About 75% of this whole system is leveraged on the federal government, who requires you to do certain expensive things that add more cost to this. You are our agent, and we'll do anything we want to as long as we're willing to pay for it.
No, we're not just dependent upon the city, sir. I mean, we are going to come to you and make our needs known.
Okay. Who else would pay
but-
$9 million? That's what you told us, $9 million, not $10 million to do the 20 minutes. Who else would pay that $10 million?
That would take a plan. Okay?
I don't see
That would
people
take a
lining up
plan.
to pay money toward this $10 million. We're the agent. We're the people. You told us it's our money. I don't, all these things we're talking about, there's no one else given. The county's given $12,000. We're given $300,000. So if we want to accomplish this, we have to pay more money.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I think so, but I'm not asking the city to pay it all. And in an hour, we're not going to address or determine the best way to reach a $10 million operation when we're a little over the 1 million right now. It would not do. It's complicated. I cannot tell you how complicated. The mayor asked for some information, and we sent him information about the vehicle regulations. And we take safety very seriously. And so we will not administer a service that does not provide quality, safe service. So let's not jump to the 10 million, okay?
Well, if we jump to 2 million,
Okay.
we got to pay that $800,000.
Maybe to make the commitment and then give us time to work out a plan to see what the true cost would be and who else might share a plan. It's meant, the
If that's the
county has
case,
been
you would've done it
mentioned,
already.
employers have been mentioned, advertising revenue has been mentioned, fair has been mentioned. This community is generous and this community is crying out for transit. And I'm willing to be at the table.
Well, I challenge you, Cheryl, for all of the people or agencies crying out, please go to them for funding also.
All right.
You're asking me to ask the agencies for funding?
No, whoever's crying to you saying, we want more transit systems, we want more, you all to provide more, whoever's saying that, not citizens who are writing it.
They're individuals.
Okay,
They're
okay,
individuals
that's the only ones
who are
that are
working.
saying. Okay,
And when their car breaks down and they cannot afford,
okay. I thought you
Childcare,
meant
public
businesses
transit.
were crying out for this or something like that. Okay,
No,
never
ma'am.
mind, I'm sorry.
All right, well, thank y'all for finishing up here. Is there any other things you need before we go? I don't believe we have anything else on the agenda, but I'm sure we'll be talking a whole lot in the future too, so anything else? All right, we'll return at 7 o'clock for our regular meeting. Thank you for tuning in.